I thought my marriage was falling apart. Turns out it had already collapsed behind my back. What started as a cold shoulder turned into a poker night power play and ended with a move she never saw coming. She tested how far she could push me until I finally pushed back. I came home from work, exhausted, just looking for a few minutes of peace. I dropped my bag by the door and saw Claire sitting on the couch. I hadn't even said anything yet, just reached out to put my arm around her, and she recoiled like I'd touched her with fire. "Hank, stop pawing at me," she said like I was some creep on the street. "I respect myself too much for that." I blinked, tried to laugh it off. "Come on, Claire. It's a hug." She stood up slowly, deliberately. "I said stop. I respect myself." Then she marched off and locked herself in the bathroom. I stood there, hands still halfway in the air, stunned. We'd been married 8 years, and now I couldn't even touch her without it turning into a confrontation. I sat down, confused more than angry. I wasn't trying to start anything, just a small gesture after a long day. But she acted like I'd crossed some huge line. Claire stayed in the bathroom for 15 minutes. I could hear her pacing inside, probably rehearsing what she'd say next. She always did that, played lawyer in her own courtroom. And me? I just sat there thinking about how we got to this point, how a couple who used to laugh through burnt pancakes and Netflix marathons had turned into two strangers sharing a mortgage. I wasn't going to yell, I never do, but I wasn't going to pretend nothing happened either. So I said it, loud enough for her to hear. "Yeah, well, I respect myself too, Claire. And don't expect me to keep footing the bill for your comfort if this is what I get in return." No response. Of course not. Claire doesn't respond. She recalibrates. The next morning, I got up early like always. Made coffee, checked emails, mentally prepped for the meeting with Tom. Claire didn't come down until almost 8. She didn't say good morning, just poured herself a mug and started scrolling on her phone like I was invisible. "You sleep okay?" I asked, keeping it neutral. "Fine." That was all I got. One syllable. I nodded. "Good. I've got a meeting with Tom. I'll be home late." She glanced up, confused. "Tom? Since when?" "Since I scheduled it yesterday." I rinsed my mug and grabbed my keys before she could start another back and forth. She started to say something, probably to pull the conversation back in her direction, but I cut her off. "I can, and I am." That was my first move. I wasn't asking for her permission. I was drawing a line. At the office, I tried to focus, but I couldn't stop thinking about how our marriage had turned into a chess match where I was always reacting. Always 3 moves behind. I'd spent so long trying to keep the peace, trying to interpret the silence, that I hadn't noticed how much of myself I'd given up along the way. Tom noticed I was off. He asked if everything was okay. I told him, "Just family stuff." He nodded. No questions. Just a quiet, understanding kind of support that comes from someone who's seen the inside of a marriage that doesn't work. After the meeting, I should have gone home, but I didn't want to. Not to that cold kitchen, that cold silence, and that colder look Claire wore like armor. So I texted my buddy Mike. "I'm in for poker night." It wasn't about cards. It was about choosing a night where I didn't have to walk on eggshells. Mike's place wasn't perfect, stale beer and loud jokes, but it was real, honest, predictable. Claire showed up too. Of course. She never missed a chance to perform in front of my friends. And that's what it was now, performing. Claire had become a pro at playing perfect wife when eyes were on her. But I knew the truth. The wine glass, the too loud laugh, the subtle digs disguised as jokes, they weren't cute anymore. They were weapons. That night, sitting at the poker table with the guys, cards in my hand, I realized something. She wasn't trying to be close. She was trying to win, and I was done playing by rules she kept changing. I didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in a long time, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to lose myself just to keep the peace. Not anymore. Poker night should have been a release. Instead, it became the moment everything clicked. We were halfway through the game. Mike was cracking jokes about his boss, Dave was sipping his usual light beer, and Steve had just repeated one of his recycled car dealership stories. I was holding a decent hand when Claire, 3 glasses of wine deep, leaned in with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Hank, you planning to lose all our money tonight, or just half? Laughter erupted around the table. Mike slapped the felt, Dave smirked, and Steve nodded like it was the line of the night. I didn't laugh. I didn't even blink. That wasn't a joke. That was a test. Claire loved to use my silence as proof that I didn't care. But this time, I wasn't playing along. If I lose, it's my money, I said evenly. You're not exactly pulling in six figures. Her smile twitched. She tried to recover with a toss of her hair. Come on, Hank, don't be so sensitive. It's not about being sensitive, I said, tossing chips into the pot. I just play to win. The table chuckled, but the vibe shifted. Claire wasn't expecting that. Not in front of others. She always assumed I'd absorb her shots like a sponge and smile through it. That was her real game, testing limits in front of an audience. But I wasn't her target anymore. I was a mirror, and she didn't like what she saw. She tried again later, same tone, same goal. Maybe stick to checkers, Hank. Poker's not really your game. This time I didn't say a word. I stood up, pushed in my chair, grabbed my jacket. I'm out, I said to Mike. What? You're leaving? Claire asked like I was the one being unreasonable. Yep, I replied, already zipping up. I don't play where I'm not respected. The room fell silent. Not a dramatic silence, just that kind of real, heavy pause when everyone knows something just broke. I locked eyes with her and said it clearly. I don't waste my time on bad bets. Then I left. No scene, no yelling, just a boundary drawn so clearly it echoed. Driving home, I didn't feel angry. I felt steady. That was move two. Public boundary, no apology. She wanted to humiliate me in front of my friends, and I shut it down without raising my voice. And it worked because I didn't fight back emotionally. I just walked away. Claire got home an hour later. She slammed the door, stormed into the kitchen, and said, Really, Hank? You just walk out in front of everyone? You made it a show. I just ended it, I said without looking up from the TV. She scoffed. You embarrassed me. No, you embarrassed yourself. You're being dramatic. I turned to her, calm but firm. You don't get to talk to me like that, especially not in front of our friends. Not anymore. Her voice softened, just a bit. That manipulative calm she used when she wanted to reverse the blame. You can't just walk away every time you don't like something. Watch me, I said, standing up. I'm sleeping in the guest room. Figure out what you want, Claire, because I'm done with this game. She started arguing, but I didn't stay to hear it. I shut the door behind me, locked it. That was the consequence. I wouldn't sleep next to someone who disrespected me. Days passed. Claire went full cold shoulder. Short answers, no small talk, passive-aggressive movements around the house. I tried once or twice to be civil. How was your day? Fine. Want to grab dinner? Whatever. I recognized the tactic. Make me feel like the bad guy until I apologized. But this time I didn't chase. I didn't explain. I wasn't the one who crossed the line. The silence wasn't hurting me. It was freeing me. Every day in that guest room felt more like peace and less like punishment. Then came the barbecue. Lisa, Claire's friend, hosted it. Claire insisted we go, like nothing had happened. I agreed, but on my terms. That morning, I called Tom. Hey, I said, I'm taking Monday off, going to the cabin for a few days. Tom didn't ask questions, just said, Everything okay? It will be. The cabin was mine, bought before Claire and I got married. She always hated it, said it was too remote, too quiet. But that was exactly the point. No noise, no power plays, just space to think. At Lisa's barbecue, the moment came fast. Claire, surrounded by friends, glass of wine in hand, called out across the yard, Hank, you gonna stand there all day or help with the plates? Everyone turned. Lisa smirked. Paul looked away. Greg kept sipping his beer. Another test. I walked over calmly, grabbed a stack of plates and set them down. Anything else, Your Majesty? Laughter, awkward and forced. Claire tried to shrug it off. Oh, Hank, always so dramatic. I leaned in, voice low but clear. Claire, you don't get to order me around. Not here, not anywhere. Next time, ask like an adult or don't ask at all. The yard froze. The silence said more than her words ever could. I turned, grabbed a beer, and rejoined Greg like nothing happened. That was the public shift. Not a scene, not a fight, just control, taken back in plain sight. On the drive home, Claire didn't say a word until we hit the driveway. Then came the accusations. You humiliated me back there. No, I said, cutting the engine. You tried to humiliate me. I just didn't let you. She slammed the car door and stomped inside. I let her go, walked into the garage, grabbed the duffel bag I'd packed that morning, and tossed it in the truck bed. I'm heading to the cabin, I said as I passed the front door. If you need me, you know my number. She didn't respond. I wasn't waiting for her to. By the time I hit the highway, my mind was clear. This wasn't a break, it was a reset. And I wasn't coming back the same man who left. The cabin gave me something I hadn't felt in years. Silence that wasn't weaponized. No mind games, no passive aggression. Just the steady lap of water against the dock, a good book, and the sound of my own thoughts finally sorting themselves out. For 3 days, I didn't call Claire, didn't check in. I wasn't punishing her. I was giving myself space. The kind of space you need to hear what your gut's been screaming at you for months. By the second night, I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. Claire didn't want a partner. She wanted an audience. Someone to clap when she delivered a cutting line, to chase her down after every cold shoulder, to beg for scraps of affection. I'd done it for too long. That version of me was done. When I got home Wednesday, the house was exactly what I expected. Her stuff sprawled out everywhere like a declaration. Dishes in the sink, her yoga mat in the middle of the living room, mail unopened on the counter. She wanted me to see that the house didn't stop functioning without me. I didn't take the bait. I didn't say a word. I dropped my bag in the guest room and went straight to the office. Work had piled up, and I welcomed it. Deadlines were clear. Expectations made sense. Nothing shifted based on someone's mood. That night, Claire was waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed, staring like I'd stolen something from her. You just disappear for 3 days and think that's normal? She asked, trying to sound calm, but her voice cracked. I told you where I was, I said, grabbing a water from the fridge. You didn't call. I figured that meant you didn't care. Don't turn this on me, she snapped. You're the one abandoning your responsibilities. Responsibilities? I set the bottle down, slow and deliberate. Claire, I pay for this house, the bills, your car, I show up. Every single day. What exactly have you been responsible for lately, besides making sure I feel like a stranger in my own home? She blinked, caught off guard, but she recovered quickly, just like always. You're never here, she said, quieter now. You're always at work or out with your friends. I'm alone in this. I laughed. Not loud, just one of those dry, sharp exhales when the truth is too ridiculous to swallow. You've got your friends, your yoga classes, your little social events. You're not alone, Claire. You're just pissed that I'm not crawling to fix something you keep breaking. Her expression changed. No more frustration, just cold, calculated. You're selfish, Hank, she said. You always have been. I deserve better. That was it, the sentence that settled everything. She'd been jabbing, testing, dancing around the line for months. But now she'd crossed it. She didn't just disrespect me. She dismissed me. I didn't yell, didn't slam doors, just looked her in the eye. You want better? Go find it. I'm done being your backup plan. Then I walked out of the kitchen, grabbed my laptop, sat down at the dining room table and started searching for apartments. Not to scare her, not to bluff, to move. I wasn't interested in threats. I was done with hypotheticals. I wanted a door with a lock she didn't have a key to. The next day I found a place, a one-bedroom downtown, close to work, nothing fancy. I signed the lease before lunch. I didn't tell her. She'd find out soon enough. Back at the office, I was browsing furniture options when Tom walked in. He glanced at the screen, then at me. You look like a man planning a prison break. Something like that, I said, turning the laptop toward him. I'm out, Tom. He raised his eyebrows but didn't look surprised. You sure? I've never been more sure about anything. He leaned back in his chair. Well, damn, you need a place to crash in the meantime. Ellen won't mind. I appreciate that. But I've got this. That Friday morning, I met up with Sarah at a cafe near the office. She was a friend from way back, now a therapist. She always had a way of cutting through the noise. "So you're really leaving?" she asked, stirring her coffee. "I am," I said. "Lease is signed. Movers are coming tomorrow." "You don't seem torn up." "I'm not. I gave it everything I had. She didn't. I'm not sticking around to be punished for it." She gave me a slow nod. "What's Claire going to do when she finds out?" "Whatever she wants. It's not my responsibility anymore." Sarah smiled. Not a happy smile, more like a knowing one. "You sound like someone who just remembered who he is." That night, I packed up what I needed. Tools, books, a few clothes, the essentials. The rest, her decorations, her curated home aesthetic, she could have. I didn't want souvenirs from a house that stopped feeling like home a long time ago. Claire came back from some charity event around 9. She walked in, heels tapping, voice bright, until she saw the boxes in the hallway. "What the hell is this?" she asked, staring at them. I didn't flinch, just sipped my bourbon. "I'm moving out. Lease is signed. Movers come tomorrow." Her face turned red. "You're leaving? Just like that? No discussion?" "No discussion needed," I said, standing up. "You made it clear what you think of me. I'm just finally listening." She stepped forward, voice trembling. "You can't just walk out on me. We're married. Watch me. You think you can just leave me here with nothing?" She spat. "I'll take you to the cleaners." "I've already talked to a lawyer," I said. "You'll get what's fair, not a dime more." That shut her up. The threat didn't land because she knew. I was serious. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't hurt. I was done. She tried to pivot, changed her tone. Softer now. "We can work this out, Hank. Don't throw everything away." I looked her straight in the eye. "You threw it away a long time ago. I'm just walking out of the wreckage." She grabbed my arm, her voice cracking. "Please, don't do this." I pulled away. "You already did." And then I turned, grabbed my keys, and walked out the front door. No regrets, no second thoughts, just freedom. Saturday morning, the movers showed up right on time. I let them in, gave clear instructions, and stayed out of their way. Claire hovered nearby, arms crossed, making no effort to hide her disapproval. She didn't speak to me, not a word, just watched as box after box disappeared out the door like I was erasing her piece by piece. I didn't respond. I didn't look for eye contact. That part of my life was closed. I owed her nothing. By noon, the truck was packed. I signed the paperwork, tipped the crew, and stood in the now half-empty hallway of the house we once shared. Claire finally broke the silence. "You're seriously going through with this?" she asked, her voice sharper than a surprise, almost insulted. I nodded. "You never thought I would, did you?" "I thought you were smarter than this," she said. "You're throwing away everything." "No, Claire," I said calmly. "You threw it away a long time ago. I'm just the one finally walking away." And I did. Walked out the door without slamming it. Didn't give her the satisfaction of a final argument. She didn't deserve closure from me. Not after everything. The new apartment was small, but clean. A fresh start. No passive-aggressive decor choices. No walking on eggshells. I unpacked just the essentials and left the rest for later. For once, I had space that felt like mine. Work picked up immediately. The office complex project went into full swing, and I buried myself in the details. Permits, subcontractors, timelines. It felt good to build something that wasn't falling apart under me. Tom dropped by the new place a week later. We had beers on the tiny balcony while he checked out the view. "You look lighter," he said. "I am," I told him. We didn't dwell on the past, didn't need to. Some decisions don't require a post-mortem, just action. Sarah called a few times. We caught up now and then. She asked how I was sleeping, if I missed anything. I told her the truth. What was there to miss? The silence in my apartment wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. My routines weren't built around damage control. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living with intention instead of reacting to someone else's chaos. Claire, of course, didn't disappear. 3 weeks after I moved out, she called. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail, something about talking things through and how this doesn't have to be the end. I deleted it without listening twice. Then came the texts. At first, they were cold. Accusations and blame. You abandoned me. You're a coward. When I didn't respond, the tone shifted. We can fix this. Let's meet. Just talk. I didn't reply to any of them. Silence, I realized, is a language she never learned to understand. It unnerved her. A month after I left, I got a letter from her lawyer. Not a full divorce filing, just a notice of intent filled with formal legalese about asset division and timelines. I scanned it. Nothing outrageous. She probably expected me to panic or plead. Instead, I forwarded it to my attorney, who'd already been briefed and ready. When I didn't flinch, Claire changed tactics again. A mutual friend, Lisa, the same one from the barbecue, called me out of nowhere. She's hurting, Hank, she said. She didn't expect you to actually leave. Then she never really knew me, I said. Lisa was quiet for a second. Do you still love her? I didn't hesitate. I love the version of her who didn't weaponize every conversation. That person hasn't been around for years. The friend group started taking sides. Some reached out to say they respected the way I handled it. Others stayed quiet, probably waiting to see who came out on top like it was a reality show. But I didn't care. The apartment became a refuge, a place where I wasn't being judged, tested, or manipulated. I decorated it simply, functional, nothing showy. It wasn't about style anymore. It was about peace. Every day that passed, I found new clarity, new energy. I reconnected with things I'd forgotten I loved. Morning runs, Saturday beers with Mike, planning a solo trip up north just because I could. No one rolling their eyes, no one telling me what I should be doing. Then one afternoon I bumped into Claire at a coffee shop near the office. She looked surprised to see me, like I was a ghost from a life she wasn't finished haunting. Hank, she said, like the name had tasted different now. You look good. Thanks, I replied, neutral, calm. She stood there for a second, probably waiting for me to say something else. I didn't. I wasn't rude, I just didn't owe her anything more. You never returned my calls, she said finally. I didn't need to, I said. We said everything that needed saying. She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. Maybe for the first time she realized I meant it. That was the last time I saw her. That brief encounter confirmed everything I'd already accepted. She missed the version of me who stayed quiet, who tolerated the jabs and carried the weight. She didn't miss me. She missed the power she had when I was still in her orbit. But I was out now, completely. Some people spend years trying to salvage something they should have walked away from the first time they were disrespected. I gave it time. I gave it effort. I gave it everything a husband is supposed to. But respect isn't something you earn by being patient. It's something you demand by leaving when it's no longer offered. And I had left. Not out of spite, not to prove a point, but to finally live like I mattered. 6 months passed. My new apartment was no longer just a space. It was a home. I knew every creak in the floor, every sound the radiator made. I came and went without needing to check someone else's mood. I didn't wait for fights to die down. There were no fights, no manipulation, no silent wars waged across dinner tables. Work was thriving. We landed the office complex contract, and new clients were coming in steadily. Tom told me I looked like a new man. I didn't feel new. I felt restored. Like I'd finally peeled off years of resentment and confusion that I didn't even know I was carrying. Mike came by most weekends. Poker nights were different now. Laughs were real. Nobody was walking on eggshells, and I didn't have to brace for a cutting remark disguised as humor. Dave stopped bringing his own poker chips. Even Steve's old stories started sounding new again. Maybe because I could actually listen without being distracted by tension. Sarah checked in often too. Her advice stayed with me, even when she wasn't around. She once told me, you don't always have to fight to prove your worth. Sometimes the real proof is in walking away. At the time, I didn't fully understand what she meant. Now I did. Claire never stopped trying, at least for a while. She called a few more times, left messages, sent one long email that was equal parts apology, justification, and veiled accusation. I didn't answer. Not out of anger, just out of clarity. Nothing she could say would change what I already knew. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry for the consequences. She missed the version of me that stayed, tolerated, paid, explained. But that version didn't exist anymore. I had no interest in rebuilding something that had already rotted from the inside. Eventually, the calls stopped. The emails went silent. I assumed she moved on, or at least realized I had. The divorce moved forward smoothly. My lawyer handled everything. Claire's team tried to argue over minor things, furniture, bank statements, but I didn't flinch. I stuck to what was fair, nothing more. No revenge, no drama, just facts. When the final paperwork came through, I signed it without hesitation. No last-minute doubts, no second thoughts. Freedom doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with peace. One night, sitting on my balcony with a glass of whiskey, I thought about the past year, the slow unraveling of a relationship that once had so much potential. I didn't regret marrying Claire. I regretted not leaving sooner. There's a difference between giving someone time and giving them permission to destroy you. I had spent years hoping she'd see the damage she was doing, hoping she'd stop pushing, hoping she'd remember how to love without turning everything into a competition. But love doesn't survive in power struggles. It needs trust, respect, and effort. Claire didn't lose me because I stopped loving her. She lost me because she stopped loving in a way that mattered. Some friends asked if I was dating again. I wasn't. Not because I was bitter, but because I was rebuilding. I wanted the next chapter of my life to be about growth, not distraction. I didn't want to use someone else to fill a space I had only just reclaimed for myself. Living alone taught me things I didn't expect. How to sit in silence without discomfort. How to cook for one and still enjoy it. How to end a workday and feel proud of the life I'd built without anyone else's validation. And maybe most importantly, how to forgive. Not her, but myself. For waiting so long, for ignoring the red flags, for thinking that loyalty meant enduring anything. It didn't. Loyalty is not a blank check. It's a promise made in good faith. When that faith is broken repeatedly, it's not betrayal to walk away. It's survival. Now, when I wake up, I don't brace for impact. I make coffee. I read. I go for runs. I build things that last. Contracts, projects, friendships. Not one-sided expectations or fake peace. Claire's name doesn't come up often anymore. People stopped asking questions. They saw the change in me, and that was enough. I didn't win anything. There was no trophy for enduring a toxic relationship, but I walked away with something far more valuable: self-respect. And that's something no one can take from me again. The real revenge, if you want to call it that, wasn't in walking out. It was in the quiet, steady decision to live better, to be better, to demand better. And I did. I still do. Every single day.